Somewhere in your yard right now there is a plant you have pulled a dozen times that is worth more than half the things sitting in your medicine cabinet or your grocery cart. Most people spray it, mow it, or yank it out the second it shows its head, never once knowing what they are actually throwing away. These are not rare herbs from some specialty garden centre. They are growing in the cracks of your driveway and along the edge of your lawn this very morning. Stick with me, because one plant on this list was once thought so valuable that it lent its name to an entire sweet, a sweet that is now made from nothing but sugar and gelatine. And near the very end we come to a plant with a name so plain and so honest that you will wonder why nobody ever pointed it out to you before. I have spent a lifetime learning which of these so-called weeds earn their keep and which do not, and the truth is that most of the ones you fight hardest are the ones pulling their weight the most. So before you reach for the sprayer again, let me walk you through 12 of them, counting down from the 12th all the way to the one I rate above all the rest. My name is Malcolm Ashby, and for 60 years I have grown my own food and foraged wild plants. So if that is the sort of thing you want more of, consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind later. Now let us get our knees in the dirt and start the countdown proper, because the plant sitting at number 12 is one nearly everyone has torn out without a second thought. Coming in at number 12 is common mallow. You have almost certainly pulled this one and never given it a backward glance. Round scalloped leaves, small pale flowers, soft stems that snap between your fingers. Most folk see a filler weed and move straight past it. Here is what they are missing. The root of this plant is where the word marshmallow actually comes from. For centuries, people boiled mallow root down into a thick, sticky substance and sweetened it, long before anyone poured in sugar syrup and gelatine and sold it as a modern snack. That gooey texture comes from mucilage, a natural compound that coats and soothes irritated tissue the moment it touches it. Herbalists have leaned on mallow for generations to calm a sore throat, settle an upset stomach, and ease sore skin, because that mucilage forms a gentle protective layer wherever it lands. And it is not only the root doing the work. The leaves and flowers carry the same soothing compounds, just in smaller measure. The whole plant is edible. Young leaves go straight into a salad, mild and faintly nutty. Older leaves do better cooked, wilted into a soup the way you would treat spinach. The seed pods, sometimes called cheeses for their round segmented shape, can be eaten raw right off the stem, and children have snacked on them for generations with nobody fretting over it. Mallow draws in pollinators when it flowers, and it shrugs off poor soil better than almost anything else growing wild. So before you pull it next time, remember it fed people, treated sore throats, and gave a sweet its name, all while everyone else called it a nuisance. Next on the list, at number 11, is common violet. This one hides in plain sight every spring, and almost nobody looks twice. Small heart-shaped leaves, purple or white flowers, sitting low to the ground, turning up in lawns everywhere. Most people mow straight over it. That is a genuine mistake, because gram for gram violet leaves carry more vitamin C than an orange. Vitamin C is not merely an immune booster. It is essential for building collagen, healing wounds, and keeping blood vessels strong, and most folk assume they only get it from citrus. Violet leaves are also loaded with rutin, a flavonoid studied for strengthening capillary walls and supporting healthy circulation. Traditional herbalists brewed violet leaf tea for exactly that reason, using it to support lymphatic drainage and ease mild congestion through the cold season. The flowers are just as useful, and this is where the kitchen gets genuinely fun. Violet flowers can be candied whole, dropped into a simple syrup, or steeped into a vinegar that turns a deep striking purple the instant you add a splash of lemon juice. Cooks have used them to dress puddings and plates for centuries, not because they were fashionable, but because they hold their colour and flavour better than most edible flowers you can find. Both leaves and flowers go raw into salads, chopped into a pesto, or steeped into a mild, faintly sweet tea. The plant spreads through underground rhizomes, which is exactly why it keeps returning no matter how often you pull it. Perhaps that stubbornness is worth respecting, rather than fighting. Coming in at number 10 is chickweed. Low, sprawling, and easy to walk past, chickweed carpets the shady, damp corners of yards everywhere, and most people treat it as an invader to be dealt with before it spreads. That instinct is backwards. Chickweed has been used for centuries as a cooling remedy for irritated skin, and the reason comes down to its high mucilage and saponin content. Crushed fresh, it forms a soothing paste that traditional healers pressed straight onto insect bites, minor rashes, and itchy patches, and the relief tends to arrive within minutes rather than hours. But chickweed's real value may sit in the kitchen. The entire plant is edible raw, with a mild grassy flavour close to spinach or baby lettuce. It is rich in vitamin C, several B vitamins, and minerals like calcium, magnesium, and iron, all bundled into a plant most people are actively trying to wipe out of their lawns. It also carries a long reputation as a gentle digestive aid, used to ease mild bloating, and some herbalists still recommend it as a mild diuretic to reduce water retention. Chickweed grows fastest in the cooler months, often thriving in early spring and late autumn when most other greens have not yet come up. That timing alone earns it a place, because it is one of the few fresh edible greens standing in a garden during the exact weeks everything else lies dormant. Next time it shows up in a shaded patch, think about gathering a handful for a salad instead of spraying it. Chickweed rewards patience far more than the reputation it has been handed. At number 9 we come to red clover. Most homeowners see a patch of clover and assume the lawn has a problem. In truth, clover might be the healthiest thing growing there. Red clover is a legume, and legumes manage something almost nothing else in your yard can. Through a partnership with bacteria living in nodules on its roots, clover pulls nitrogen straight out of the air and turns it into a form other plants can actually use. Every patch of clover in your lawn is steadily fertilizing the grass around it for free, without a single bag of synthetic feed. That is not the only reason to leave it be. Clover flowers are one of the most reliable food sources for bees right through the growing season, especially in early summer before other blooms have opened. Bee populations have been under real pressure for years, and clover is one of the simplest, lowest effort ways a single yard can lend a hand. The flowers themselves are edible and have been dried into a tea for generations, valued for a mild, faintly sweet, hay-like flavour. Traditional use also includes topical preparations for irritated skin, since the same compounds that make clover useful to soil bacteria appear to carry mild anti-inflammatory effects when applied to the skin. Clover also sends down deep roots that help break up compacted ground and hold back erosion on slopes and bare patches. It stays green through dry spells when the grass around it browns off, because those roots reach water that shallow turf grass simply cannot get to. Before you spray clover out of a lawn, it is worth remembering what it is doing underground the whole time nobody is watching. Coming in at number 8 is wood sorrel. This one looks almost exactly like clover at first glance, 3 heart-shaped leaflets folded slightly at the centre, but bite into it and the difference is immediate. Wood sorrel tastes sharply, distinctly sour, almost like fresh lemon, and that flavour alone should be reason enough to stop pulling it. The tartness comes from oxalic acid, the same natural compound found in spinach and rhubarb. In moderate amounts, it is perfectly safe for most people and gives that bright citrusy bite that chefs now forage specifically as a natural garnish and flavouring. Wood sorrel has a long history as a thirst quencher, chewed by field workers and travellers who wanted something refreshing without carrying water. It was also used to add a sour note to dishes in places where lemons and vinegar were hard to come by, standing in as a foraged substitute for acid in cooking long before citrus was widely traded. The leaves, flowers and seed pods are all edible raw. Toss the leaves into a salad for a citrus lift, steep them briefly in hot water for a tart, refreshing tea, or scatter the small yellow flowers over a dish the way a chef would use microgreens. It is worth noting that people managing kidney stones or certain kidney conditions should be cautious with high oxalic acid foods in general, and moderation applies here just as it does with spinach or rhubarb. For nearly everyone else, this is a free wild seasoning growing along flower beds and lawn edges that most people rip out without ever tasting it first. At number 7 we have curly dock, tall, with long wavy-edged leaves and a distinctive rust-coloured seed stalk that turns up in late summer. Curly dock gets treated like an eyesore in most yards. Underneath that plain appearance sits one of the more nutrient-dense wild greens most people will ever stride past. Young dock leaves, picked before the plant flowers, are edible and taste similar to sorrel or spinach with a slightly tangy edge. They are rich in vitamin A, vitamin C and iron, and older cultures across Europe and the Middle East regularly cooked dock leaves the way spinach is cooked today, wilted down, seasoned and served as a simple side. The root has its own separate history. Traditional herbalists used dock root as a gentle support for digestion and as a mild remedy pressed onto skin irritation, largely thanks to its tannin content and its natural astringent quality. It was often steeped into a strong tea or ground into a paste for topical use. Then there is the part almost nobody mentions. Those rust-coloured seed clusters that appear in late summer are edible too. They can be ground into a coarse flour and used as a wild grain substitute, something foragers have relied on for generations through lean seasons when cultivated grain ran short. Dock also drives down an extremely deep taproot, which means it hauls minerals up from soil that shallow-rooted plants can never reach. When it eventually breaks down, those minerals return to the topsoil, steadily improving the ground around it. What looks like an unwanted weed with rusty seed heads is actually running its own quiet mineral recycling operation. Coming in at number 6 is yarrow. Feathery fern-like leaves and flat clusters of tiny white or pale pink flowers make yarrow easy to spot and easy to dismiss as just another wild flower crowding a bed. Gardeners who understand what it is really doing tend to protect it rather than remove it. Yarrow draws in an unusually wide range of helpful insects, including ladybirds, lacewings, and predatory wasps, all of which feed on aphids, mites, and the other pests that chew through garden plants. Plant it near vegetables or roses, and it works as a natural recruiting station for the very insects that keep destructive pests in check without a single spray. The plant carries a long medicinal history too. Traditional use includes pressing crushed yarrow leaves straight onto minor cuts and scrapes, where its natural compounds appear to support clotting and shorten bleeding time. It has also been taken for centuries as a tea for fevers, used to encourage sweating and help the body work through a minor illness more comfortably. Yarrow is remarkably drought-tolerant once established, often thriving in dry, poor soil where other flowering plants struggle, and that resilience makes it a low-maintenance addition to any yard, asking almost nothing in water or attention once its roots take hold. Beekeepers prize it as well, since those flat flower clusters make an easy landing pad for pollinators, and its long bloom keeps nectar coming well after other flowers have finished for the season. Before pulling yarrow out of a bed, consider what leaves the moment it does. The pest control it was steadily running vanishes right along with it. At number 5 we reach broadleaf plantain. Most people know this one by its flat-ribbed leaves growing low and stubborn in the most walked parts of the yard, the driveway, the footpath, the packed dirt by the mailbox. What almost nobody realizes is that plantain turns up precisely where the soil has gone compacted and unhealthy, and it is actually working to mend the very problem that let it grow there. Plantain sends down an unusually deep, tough taproot, able to push through hard-packed dirt that most other plants cannot pierce. As that root grows, it slowly breaks up the compaction and opens narrow channels that let air, water, and other roots move through ground that used to be sealed shut. It is essentially free self-deploying soil aeration, and it appears exactly where it is needed most. The seeds are edible and nutritionally significant in their own right. They are closely related to psyllium, the fiber source used in many over-the-counter supplements, and can be collected, dried, and ground for a similar effect, delivering soluble fiber that supports healthy digestion without buying a single supplement bottle. The leaves are edible too, young ones raw in salads, older ones cooked down the way you would treat coloured greens. Traditional use also includes crushing the fresh leaves for topical relief on minor skin irritation, insect bites, and small cuts, a practice still common in home herbal medicine today. Plantain also handles foot traffic better than almost any other plant, which is exactly why it colonizes paths and driveways rather than flower beds. It is worth asking what that patch of soil actually needs, because plantain turning up there is often the answer, not the problem. Coming in at number 4 is lamb's quarters. This one grows fast, tall, and without apology in disturbed soil, garden beds, and the neglected corners of a yard, and most gardeners treat it as competition for their vegetables. That is an expensive mistake, because lamb's quarters often out-nutrients the very vegetables it is supposedly crowding out. Per serving, it carries more calcium, iron, and protein than spinach, along with substantial vitamin A and vitamin C. It has been eaten across nearly every continent for thousands of years, turning up in traditional diets from Europe to Asia to the Americas long before it earned the label of an unwanted weed. The leaves have a mild, faintly earthy flavour, close to spinach, and can be used almost identically. Sauté them with garlic and olive oil, wilt them into a soup, or blend them into a smoothie for a nutrient boost most people never think to add. Young leaves work raw in salads, while older, tougher leaves do better cooked down. The seeds are just as valuable and often overlooked entirely. They are nutritionally similar to quinoa, which happens to be a close botanical relative and can be harvested in late summer, dried, and used the same way, cooked into a grain-like side or ground into flour. Lamb's quarters grows aggressively because it is genuinely well suited to disturbed, nutrient-rich soil, which is precisely the kind of soil found in most vegetable gardens. So instead of pulling it and tossing it on the compost, it might be worth harvesting it straight into dinner. At number 3 we have purslane. Low, fleshy, and almost succulent in appearance, purslane spreads across the hot, dry patches of a garden where nothing else seems to want to grow, and most people scrape it out without a second thought. That decision throws away one of the most nutritionally unusual plants in the whole yard. Purslane holds higher levels of alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3 fat, than almost any other leafy vegetable tested. Some research has found levels that rival certain fish oil supplements gram for gram, which is a genuinely strange thing to find in a plant most people consider a nuisance rather than food. Beyond the omega-3, purslane is rich in vitamin C, vitamin A, magnesium, and potassium, and it holds notable amounts of glutathione, an antioxidant the body relies on for cellular repair and detoxification. The leaves have a mild, faintly lemony, faintly salty flavour with a crisp, juicy texture close to a cucumber. It works raw in salads, adding both crunch and tang, or lightly sautéed the way you would cook spinach, though it collapses fast thanks to its high water content. Traditional Mediterranean and Middle Eastern cooking has used purslane for centuries, often pairing it with yogurt, garlic, and lemon in dishes that predate most modern nutrition science by thousands of years. Purslane is also remarkably drought-resistant, storing water in its thick fleshy leaves the same way a succulent does, which is exactly why it appears in the hottest, driest parts of a yard where the grass has already given up. Rather than fighting it there, it makes far more sense to simply start harvesting it. Coming in at number 2 is dandelion. Almost everyone recognizes the bright yellow flower and the puffball seed head that follows it, and almost everyone treats dandelion as public enemy number 1 on a well-kept lawn. Few people realize how much steady work this plant is doing beneath the surface the entire time. Dandelion sends down a taproot that can reach well over a foot into the ground, and as it grows, it mines minerals like calcium and potassium from deep soil layers that shallow-rooted grass can never touch. When the leaves die back and decompose, those minerals return to the topsoil, effectively feeding the lawn around it for free. That same taproot breaks up compacted ground the way plantain does, improving drainage and airflow underground without anyone lifting a spade. And dandelions are among the very first flowers to bloom in early spring, opening when almost nothing else has flowered yet, which makes them a critical early food source for bees emerging from winter with next to no other options. Every part of the plant is edible. Young leaves work in salads, slightly bitter but nutrient-dense, packed with vitamin A, vitamin C, and calcium. The flowers can be battered and fried, steeped into a tea, or fermented into a wine, a practice with centuries of tradition behind it. The root can be roasted and ground into a coffee substitute, a use that goes back generations in households that could not always afford real coffee. Dandelion keeps coming back because it is doing genuine, measurable work in soil that badly needs it. The lawn fighting it might actually be the thing benefiting most. And at number 1, the plant I rate above all the rest is self-heal. Somewhere in a shaded low corner of your yard, there is probably a small plant with purple tube-shaped flowers stacked into a tight cluster at the top of a short stem. Most people have never noticed it, and almost nobody knows that its name describes exactly what it was used for. Self-heal, sometimes called heal-all, earned that name across several unrelated herbal traditions in Europe and Asia, all of which independently landed on the same plant for the same broad purpose: treating wounds, soothing inflammation, and supporting recovery. When cultures with no contact with one another reach the same conclusion about a plant, that pattern is worth paying attention to. Modern research has picked up where traditional use left off. Self-heal contains rosmarinic acid and ursolic acid, 2 compounds studied for their anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. Laboratory work has also examined self-heal extracts for antiviral and antimicrobial activity, an area active enough to keep generating new papers years after herbalists first made the same claims through plain observation. Traditionally, the fresh leaves were crushed and applied straight to cuts, bruises, and minor skin irritation, working much the way yarrow or plantain were used, a natural on-the-spot remedy anyone could make without leaving their yard. Dried, it has been steeped into a tea for centuries to support sore throats and mild inflammation. The whole plant is edible too, with a mild, faintly bitter flavour that works fine raw in salads or lightly cooked. It spreads low and tolerates mowing better than almost anything else on this list, which is exactly why it survives in lawns cut every single week while nobody notices what is really growing there. 12 plants, and every single one of them was already doing something useful long before anyone pulled it. Some feed pollinators, some feed people, and some are steadily rebuilding the soil under your feet while you are indoors deciding whether to spray them. So the next time you are out in the yard about to yank one of these, take a closer look first. You might be about to get rid of the one thing actually working in your favour. And if there is a plant or a patch of ground you would like me to dig into next, tell me down in the comments. Thanks for spending this time with me, and I will see you in the garden.